I'm Eric Newton, and this is The Together Show. We all know relationships take work, but what is that work, and how do we do it? As a former divorce lawyer, I've watched thousands of couples break up firsthand. Having seen the worst in relationships, I decided to try to help couples stay together. So on this show, we talk to real couples and find out what love really looks like.
Anytime you go that fast into anything, I don't care what it is, job, school, anytime you jump in sort of spontaneously without really taking the time, you're bound to deal with the repercussions, which in our case was figuring out who the hell each other was and learning that while you're married and having kids. It was a recipe for disaster.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for listening. I wrote an article for Together magazine this week that we're posting up at the same time that we're posting the interview. It's called You and Me and Everyone We Know, and it's about the importance of community in marriage. It's my view that marriage cannot exist without community, that marriage is a construct by community and of community, and that the two are inextricably intertwined, and that this is a strength. Now, I mention this not only because I hope you'll read the article, but because today's episode with Scott and Kelly is about this very issue. At the beginning of the interview, as you'll hear, Kelly tells us that marriage is about commitment, and that commitment means sticking it out when life is sticking it to you. And that's probably true. That view comes from her experience as a divorce lawyer in Los Angeles. But her insight goes much deeper than that in this interview. These two had an extremely rocky start, as you'll hear, and what turned things around was their focus on a new paradigm, a whole new context that did more than just make them happy. It really allowed family to blossom. So, before I give away too many details, let's go to our interview with Scott Rickard and Kelly Chang Rickard. I want to know how you came together.
How did we meet?
You tell it better than I do.
We met at a wine tasting at some hotel, and he was actually with somebody at the time, but he hit on me anyway.
I did not hit on you.
Yes, you did. And I turned him down because I'm just not like that.
If smiling is hitting on, then my goodness, we're all hitting on everybody.
Actually, he sent me an email and said, do you want to hang out?
You emailed him?
He emailed me.
I did not. That's not exactly how it went down, but...
In any case, I said no, and then a couple years went by. Right. And then I think he said
no. There's no in
No, that's what happened.
In any case, I now know your version. I want to know Scott's.
I would say that most of that is true. We were at a wine tasting event, and I was with my ex-girlfriend at the time, and I went to the restroom. Kelly was at the restroom, and on the way, I was going to the restroom. She was coming back from the restroom, and we exchanged looks. I smiled at her, and that was sort of the extent, or I guess you would say the beginning of the end.
We went back to that pool at our 5-year anniversary because, that's where there was like physical attraction. And
yeah, and so we ended up actually, my ex-girlfriend ended up becoming friends with her girlfriend that Kelly was there with. And so we ended up hanging out with each other a few times as a group, not just us two. And eventually we lost touch, right? We didn't hang out as a group anymore.
Yeah, because you sent me an email.
Oh, is that why that happened?
Yeah, and it was
but it was
uncomfortable.
It was more like...
it was like, do you want to hang out?
I don't remember the you want to hang out. I remember we had fun. It was good hanging out with you guys. I remember it was very general, but she thinks it was me hitting on her.
Yeah, you were.
That's how.
Well,
perspective.
What would your ex-girlfriend say about it?
I think she. So fast forward, when we finally reconnected years later and ended up getting engaged. My ex, when I told her, because we were still speaking even though we weren't together, said if I had guessed that you would end up with somebody, I knew it would be her. Something to that effect.
Aw, I didn't know that.
Because I think she kind of sensed when we were hanging out that I had an attraction for Kelly and would mention her on occasion, like, how come you don't hang out with Kelly and that sort of thing. So I think she had an idea that I was interested, but wouldn't pursue it when I was with somebody.
Right. Okay. And so I'm really curious about the moment. It's a small thing, but this moment where your memory is that you didn't hit on her, and Kelly's memory is like, yeah, actually you did.
Yeah.
And what I'm curious about is if you carry that forward now, do you sometimes wonder, not that he's doing that with other women, but it's like a seed of
Doubt?
well, that you guys have a totally different worldview on a basic thing that happened, and what do you do with that fact? What do you do with that fact?
Well, I think that fact might have, because, we had a really rocky first 2 or 3 years of marriage. And I think a lot of that was maybe trust. And that could have been part of it. Fast forward, we reconnected, but we got engaged in 3 weeks. So we had lost touch after
Holy
that wine
cow.
tasting. And I think he found me on Yahoo Personals. And he sent me an email. We went out on one date. And 3 weeks later, we were engaged. And then 4 weeks later, we ran off to Vegas and eloped.
Oh my goodness, you guys.
Yeah.
That is so
It's
fast.
a crazy story.
You didn't have any time to
No.
explore
No.
anything.
Or trust each other or anything that really matters.
We had to go through all of that once after we were married. And a year later, after we were married, we had our first child. So we were still learning how to be a couple when we already had our first child. So it was sort of, I call it the just add water kind of family, marriage and everything, just instant.
It's
Everything
like
was
cup
sort
of marriage.
Cup of marriage. There you go.
Cup of noodle marriage.
Yep.
It was so fast.
And it was terrible. And I don't, looking back, I think I wouldn't recommend that you rush into marriage like that. But at the same time, in retrospect, I'm like, it really taught me what marriage is about, which is commitment. Because you can be with somebody 20 years and you can still say, fuck it, I don't want to, I do divorces all the time. I just filed a divorce of somebody that's been together for 22 years. So even if you've been together forever, that is not a formula for success. It's commitment. So whether you've known each other 3 weeks or 30 years, it's still commitment in the end that's going to make the marriage work.
What does that actually mean, though?
It means sticking it out when it's sticking it to you. Like, I wanted to kill him, so many times. I mean, there were, in the beginning, I don't know, everything would just piss me off. We're very different. And now things just don't piss me off as much anymore. Would you say that's probably why we've gotten better?
She's mellowed out.
Was it just her?
I think so.
Well, anytime
'Cause you can't get more mellow than him.
anytime you go that fast into anything. I don't care what it is, job, school. Anytime you jump in sort of spontaneously without really taking the time, you're bound to deal with the repercussions, which in our case was figuring out who the hell each other was and learning that while you're married and having kids. It was a recipe for disaster. And
Well, disaster. You stayed together.
when I'm saying it's a recipe for that.
Oh, it is. Could be.
Or could be. It's a recipe. I would say, but I would tell somebody if they were thinking about doing the same thing, don't do it. Only because I think it's harder than first figuring out who the person is that you're standing across from.
Yeah.
Learn to understand that person. Is it a good fit for you and that sort of thing. Would we still be together had we taken our time? I don't know. I could never answer that particular question. But I do agree with Kelly. I think we have very similar views about marriage in that once you've made a decision to be married, that the easy thing to do would be just to put your hands up and say, it's not for me.
You mean in that challenging phase?
In that challenging situation versus, if you think about it, it's like marriages are arranged. People don't have a say in who they're married in a lot of cultures.
In most of the world now.
Yeah, right. And
they stay together.
they stay together, and they could have absolutely nothing in common.
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's another thing we learned is like him and I are vastly different. And I remember at the beginning of the marriage, he would be like, we have nothing in common. And now it's like we don't really focus on that. I think it actually betters us. I mean, he's an athlete. He placed first. He just did a half marathon in 1:18. He's 40, man. Okay, I mean, that's fast. Second place, didn't even come close, was 18 years old. Anyways, that's my brag about him. Anyway, I'm a horrible athlete. I can't do jack crap. I don't know anything about football, baseball, basketball. I could care less. I mean, sometimes I represent them. I don't give a shit, But so we don't have that in common. I play a bunch of instruments. I like to sing. He doesn't really care for music.
Those don't sound
it's okay.
fundamental.
Yeah, I
Like
agree.
fundamental differences would be something deeper. I don't know, what, sexual preferences, or not wanting to have kids, or a major communication style that just always triggers the other one.
I mean, I don't. I mean, yeah. I mean, so if a guy likes it up the ass and the girl doesn't like it up the ass, then that means that they're not compatible.
I don't know if it's. Well, that could be an issue. No, I mean, that could be an issue, but you know what they say in the literature on the issue of sex? One of the fundamental differences is appetite in terms of volume. I'm not using the words they use in academia, but it's like, how often do you want sex? And
it's always going to be more for men.
Well, I don't know about that. It's always going to be different. The question is, what's the delta? Mm-hmm. And if it's a huge difference, then that's really hard to overcome. And often, and what they say is it doesn't change. Oh, say more.
I really disagree with that. I think if your appetites are really different and you just give up, then you're giving up. I mean, we saw this TV show. It was like 2020.
Well, I don't think he's saying giving up. He's saying that a fundamental difference can be one person wants sex more than
whack off. Like, there's remedies to that, and divorce should not be that, you know?
You're making for good radio.
Okay. I'm sorry, but after you have 2 kids come out of your vagina, there's no freaking way. You want sex all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, ask him. I was the world's horniest ever.
Wow, we're going there.
Ever. I mean, we would be having sex like 10 times a day. 10 times a day. And now, I don't know, you have kids. It's different.
No,
I kiss
10
those
times a year.
kids. If that. But anyways, now it's different now. And also, I just don't think it shouldn't be all that important. And I think he kind of agrees with me, right?
Well, I wouldn't say it's not
do.
important. I think if you look at like everything in context, if we didn't have a strong family, if we weren't able to communicate well, if we weren't friendly with each other, if there were other problems, I think sex would sort of be another wedge and potentially a really big one. But when those other things are working, you tend to focus less on it. Or if you're just one of these hypersensitive sex people, which I don't consider myself to be hypersexual, it's not that. It's not huge.
You know what that's coming up for me is that nothing is a problem unless you say it's a problem.
Yeah,
of course.
And so I don't know if this is the picture in your relationship, but it sounds like it could be that you actually would like significantly more sex than you're having, and Kelly's happy at the level she's at, but it's not a problem for you, so therefore it's not a problem.
Right. Yeah. Well,
he's an athlete, so it affects testosterone and sex levels, I think.
But I mean, a lot of but so that's one way of looking at this issue. The other way is what most of the modern literature on relationship success says, which is that sex is vitally important to intimacy. And that if you don't have a sexual life that at least satisfies on the base level both partners, you're headed for trouble.
But I disagree with that. I mean, I just read this Facebook article, and this couple has been together for 80 years. They're 100 years old. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that you're having sex at 100. I mean, that is not the formula for success. I mean, they're 100.
I don't know that they're not.
Maybe.
There's plenty of...
But she's not enjoying it, I'll tell you that. She's 100.
I don't think you can make that blanket statement either.
I really...
So it's changed for you.
Most of my friends who have kids, all of them, in fact, I can't say I know one woman that's underwent childbirth that enjoys sex all that much, quite honestly.
Now, let me ask you this. Are you unwilling to try to increase your sexual appetite?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, it'll come when my children are older, when we're sleeping in the same bed again. Just right now, I'm still co-sleeping, and I don't know, this all sounds like I'm not winning. I'm not winning.
No one's going to agree with you on this.
I'm just not winning here.
New mothers would probably be the only one who are like, oh, amen, sister. But everybody else is going to be like, oh, God, this
I don't
poor
know.
bastard.
If you're out there and you're a woman who's had a kid that doesn't want to have sex, say aye.
Yeah,
well, I mean, we all know that happens. And in the divorce business, we refer to those years when the kids are toddlers as the zombie years because of the fatigue and the lack of sexual passion. That's a known thing. But I thought you were saying it's done. It sounded like
No.
you were saying it's now
It's not done for me.
over.
No. I
Well,
think,
if it's just an ebb and a flow, then
yeah, that's exactly
let it
what
ebb
it
and
is.
let it flow. And
Right.
I get what you're coming from on that. But okay, so now, but I want to ask you a question about something you were saying earlier, which is essentially you're either committed or you're not. You're in it to win it. Do you think that anything can be overcome?
Yeah, I do.
And do you think people have a moral obligation or some kind of an obligation to do that?
Not moral, but you mean like if he cheated on me, then
Or
I should overcome this? I don't know. That's really tough, That's kind of like if you're on a mountain, you could save one child, who would it be? Like, it's just I don't know.
yeah,
I
mean,
just don't know.
the reason I'm asking is I've tried to think through this in
Yeah, but you
my
can't.
own career, and you can't because I mean, as a divorce lawyer, I would see some clients who came in, and I thought to myself, wow, you guys could really make this work. But who am I to judge? On the other hand, I saw plenty of couples who it looked intractable to me. Like there was no way it was going to work. Maybe one person was mentally unhealthy, or there was some unsolvable problem that was so great it wasn't worth overcoming. And yet, there's always this conflict between, on the one hand, it seems that you can only create the true intimacy and depth in a marriage with two elements, time and overcoming challenges. Like those two things together are what create intimacy.
I think so.
On the other hand, sometimes it's better for people to move on. And I don't and I just never know which one it is. And there's no way you can know, right? Because if you're in that moment and you're trying to decide, should I leave or should I stay, you can't set up a sample set and do a controlled study and find out which one is better. You just got to choose.
Right.
And so, I mean, do you have you're in the trenches every day. Do you have any insight on how you choose one way or the other?
Yeah, I don't know. I send them to counseling if it doesn't, because that's not my job.
Yeah.
And then if it doesn't work out, then, I just advise them of the legal ramifications. I mean, it's not always best for people to stay together.
Yeah.
Sometimes their foundation is built on the wrong thing. I mean, if you met on Tinder, what are the chances that, sorry guys who use Tinder, but I read this article on the New York Times. I mean, people use that for sex. People use that, it used to be a long time ago, you meet, you mate, you create a family. Everybody has their roles. The man goes to work, the woman, and society has eroded that. And now women work more than men. There's options online. There's, just all the roles are just eroded and the values are eroded. And it's very sad because sometimes you're in a marriage with somebody whose values are eroded and that marriage will go and it's not your fault. I mean, I represent a lot of men and women whose spouses were the straying ones. And I don't advise that they stay. I mean, they're getting cheated on and it won't stop.
On the other hand, you might work it out with Scott. If that happened, you might, because you have the strong commitment. I mean,
Yeah.
so okay, so
Depends.
let's go back to that 2 years when it was really hard before kids for that year. I mean, you could have just walked away.
As pregnant, no way.
You got pregnant pretty quick.
Yeah, really quick.
Yeah, and once you've, I think once you've made it's you're in something, you wanna see it get better, and when things are just sort of terrible, at least I think it depends on like the personality. I mean, personality is the type of person you're talking about. Someone who can sort of romanticize a situation. So for me, even at the worst moments when we were fighting and practically killing each other, not literally, but I would constantly, it's the way I function, is my mind would constantly go back to the good times, even though brief. It just depends on the type of person you're talking about. So some people, I think, when they get in these situations, they can't get out of a dark place. They couldn't get out of a dark place if someone, stepped on their foot. They're pissed off all day or whatever it is. But if somebody who just sort of is a little bit more optimistic in things and thinks, all right, I've got this sliver of good times before things went bad, I'm going to hold on to that. And it worked. I mean, for my case, in those dark moments, those small slivers of great moments, because we didn't know each other long enough to have more of those great moments, was enough. To
Just
get through
knowing
the dark.
that there was light somehow at the end of that
and
tunnel,
it
you
was
were,
enough for me
yeah.
to have him believe in us.
Oh,
You know,
because you didn't. And
you know, I think we're both optimists. You know, we're definitely idealists. We run off and get eloped. I was a divorce lawyer, but you know, he's very forgiving. He just is. He's very generous and forgiving, and he's just such a good, kind person. You know, like I didn't tell you this, but the other day he forgot their lunches at home. And then, you know, I brought the lunches to school. I was running late because I had a settlement conference in Brentwood. But I brought them, but he actually waited for me at the side of the road. You know, like he came out of the school and waited for me just so I could, you know, and that was just so sweet.
that is sweet.
Yeah. Whereas the beginning of the marriage, I would forget that part.
Right.
I'd be like, why the heck did you forget their lunches? You're so forgetful. I'm late, you know. I mean, I'd still do it, but I would have like all this anger issues or whatever. But, you know, nowadays I don't really get angry with him at all.
I'm
Ever.
I'm really curious about that change.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. What do you think happened? I just don't get mad anymore. I don't really care. I think it used to be
Life gets, you start looking at sort
You
of
mellow
life
out.
differently, especially when your kids start to get older, and how you raise them, and it's just perspective. I think it's like when you're younger, you're not only you're not very mature. I mean, I would say when we married, even though we were how old, 30,
yeah,
ish,
something
whatever.
like that.
We didn't behave like 30-year-olds. I mean, I would say we still behave like 20-year-olds.
And that is the problem today, Eric. There's a bunch of immature bullshit behavior going on out there, and people are getting married and their marriages aren't lasting. It's a bunch of bullshit.
Immature like what?
Well, it's hard to give examples, but like, you know, let's talk Facebook. Okay, so I have a client who discovered that her husband is Facebooking some random chick on, seems innocent until it's not. But that's bullshit behavior. Like, you shouldn't be doing that. No matter how innocent it is, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be Facebooking another woman. You know, like, and now he's traveling out of town to go see her. And, I mean, this poor woman, you know, it
Sounds like the seeds of infidelity were there in that one from the beginning.
Right.
But you know, the infidelity is, and it's kind of like what you're saying. Infidelity never seems to me to actually be the root problem.
Right.
There's always something below it.
Well, here it was because they were happy. And I would argue they were still happy because he doesn't want a divorce. He wants her, and then he wants this.
I don't believe for a minute that anybody who's happy and fulfilled and satisfied goes searching Facebook for booty. I just don't think that's how that works.
I don't think he thought it was booty. Maybe he just thought somebody to talk to. I don't know. I don't know what this idiot was thinking.
Excusing it, but I think I agree. I don't think it's the root. I think there's deeper things there. If you're feeling the need to do that, there's something either that's missing, or you have just some sort of compulsive behavior towards sex and other women or something. You're a pervert, whatever it is. I don't know.
So it's definitely his fault because she was complete in the marriage, right? She was raising the kids. She was.
Maybe she emasculated him. That
I think
happens.
so. She doesn't seem like an emasculating person in my office. She seemed very feminine.
That's the Facebook picture you saw.
No, she seems. I think it's definitely that guy's fault. Yeah, I'm very judgmental. When I meet them, I'm either representing the good guy or the bad guy.
Well, that's
and
how
then
it
I
is
prepare
to
for
be a lawyer. You have to be positional. It's conflict, and your job is to win for your client. Frankly, that was one of the reasons I let that career go. I couldn't believe I couldn't eat and swallow all of my clients' baloney without getting sick.
Yeah.
And in my experience, it's always a dynamic.
Yeah,
as much
pretty
as you want to
terrible
point
sometimes.
fingers, it's pretty terrible, but it's always a dynamic. Okay, well, I'm curious about what some of those conflicts were for you guys back in the day.
The ex-girlfriend, family stuff.
Yeah, looking back, they were all so
Pretty much you
goddamn
name it.
stupid.
You name it. Ex-boyfriends that she was still communicating. I mean, just A lot
No, we never
Well,
thought that much about that.
What was the family stuff?
Did you remember this is going on there?
Okay, so I'm like a royal bitch. I really am.
Wow, now she's
like
painting a different picture.
No, I'm serious. I could not have picked a better family to marry into because they're so loving and so generous and so supportive. But in the beginning, I was too goddamn stupid to know that. You know, it was all about me and immature, and I didn't want to take these family trips with him.
Do you mean that you're very self-oriented? And
Yes.
you optimize for yourself as opposed to the family, or used to?
Yeah, I think I'm very I was back then, and I probably arguably can still be very self-centered, but definitely back then, you know, I was thinking for me instead of, you know, I don't know. I think part of that was because I moved into this relationship so fast, and his ex-girlfriend was also Asian. So I was a little bit insecure as to how they perceived me because I didn't want to just be like the next Asian girl in his life or whatever. I don't know. You can talk to my therapist. They can probably put it in a better. But I was insecure and I was angry about a lot of shit. And then, I don't know. Now it's all kind of funny because I'm not afraid to talk about it and I'm not insecure.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
I just think it was just bullshit in those first 5 years. You know, and definitely when we had kids. I mean, we should have been. Now,
first 5 years?
when did our marriage get easier? I want to say for
The last 3 years.
yeah.
Was there a moment, Scott, when suddenly you were like, "Whoa, this is easier"?
No, there wasn't really a moment. I couldn't define when exactly it happened. I noticed Kelly changed a lot.
When?
Kelly became Susie Homemaker and all the things you want.
When?
Come home to a cooked meal. I mean, she's always been good at that kind of stuff. But along with all that came someone who was more aware of what she was. So the relationships that she was creating, for example, with the family, and you know how that impacts our kids. And she just, I don't know, somewhere along the line, she became someone who was less looking to. I don't want to say divide. It's the wrong answer to use, or the wrong word to use. But less. There was a lot less conflict. She just suddenly she wasn't viewing our spending time with my side of the family as something that was they're trying to sort of interject into our lives, and instead something that's very positive and something that's a good experience for us and our kids to have more in our lives versus less. And I think those first few years, it was, yes, we can have that, but let's not have too much of that. And I don't see that. I don't know when that happened. I don't know why
I think
that
maybe
happened.
it used to be like my side and his side. But then I don't know. Now we kind of see it as like when our kids grow older and they get married, we're on the same side. You know, yeah, I guess. I don't know why there was like a my side, his side. I mean, we come from different cultures. Maybe that's why.
Do you, Scott, get along with her side, quote unquote?
I do.
It's not really that way anymore. Sides.
No, I wouldn't even view it as that. Because there's such a big cultural difference, you can't help but notice the differences.
Yeah.
But you know, I think now I would say that we celebrate the differences more than we did before. Before, I think we defined the differences as a reason for sort of separating us and how we would fight and everything. And now I think it's quite. There's a lot of value. There's so much value to it. So it's wonderful because our kids get an entire Asian side, which is very different than the way I grew up. So when we visit her family, it's very different. It's a close knit family, but the way they operate is different. And then when we visit my family, it's very different. So and our kids get to experience both. It's kind of like what Kelly was bringing up earlier about I'm into athletics and she's a great musician and you know when you meld those two together. You give your kids the best of life, and I think both of us have reached a point where I think this works so well is because our kids are number one for us, and everything we sort of do and how we operate each and every day is operating under that assumption that our kids are number one, and we want to give them number one. If we split up, we really have decided that we don't give them that chance as much.
I think my therapist put it was like, I think in the beginning, identity. I think marriage is all about identity.
Say more.
Which should not be, okay? But I think nowadays with the selfies, everybody is about identity. And I think when I first got into the marriage, and I remember talking to a therapist, she was like, identity is very important to you. And I think back then I was focused on loss of identity. You know, it's like even now I really need to be Kelly Chang Rickard. And there's for no other reason except for the fact that I need to still be a Chang, which is still identity based. But I think over the years, it's less of a self and more others or my children, you know, and I think if more people would focus on that, their marriages would probably be easier. Because if you think about all the marriages that fall apart, it's like my wife isn't giving me sex, my wife doesn't cook for me, my husband doesn't make enough money. It's all about what they're not getting, what's making them lose their identity when they shouldn't even have an identity. When you're married, it should be like together. That's what I think, but I'm a divorce lawyer. What do I know?
No, there's a kernel in that. Boy, I tell you, of some real wisdom. Because there is this transmutation that occurs when you deepen in a relationship where, I mean, the way I've articulated it before is that not only are you each your individual selves, but that you now have a third entity called the marriage or the family or the relationship, which takes on its own significance, its own weight, its own role in the community, and a lot of times supersedes the individuals. I was talking to a therapist on the show the other day who was saying, though, that in order for the marriage to be healthy, the individuals need to be healthy. And so they need to take care of themselves first. And then by taking care of themselves, the relationship is happy. And you're kind of saying the opposite, actually.
Well, it depends what you mean by taking care of yourselves. I mean, if it's like bathing and brushing your teeth, you know, I agree. You should do those things. But if you're like taking care of yourself because I need my sex, then I disagree.
You know, I think she probably meant
interests,
emotional and spiritual health.
Yeah, that's fine. But you know these men that claim they have sexual addictions or whatever bullshit they give you? You know these men. It's like, I have a sexual addiction. It's like, yeah, you need to get off your lazy ass and go bike 26 miles, 2,000 miles. Then you won't be sticking your dick in other places. You know what I mean? That's what I think.
Well, but that's only if they have an interest in things like sports. I mean, I agree with the identity, like focusing on yourself and
but
your
sexual
interests.
addiction is
I'm
not
not talking about
does
sexual.
not exist.
No,
It really does not
I'm
exist.
talking about like each of us are our own person with our own interests and everything. And even though we've come together and we have that third identity kind of thing you were talking about with the marriage, we can't completely lose ourselves. And I absolutely 100% agree with that because taking time to continue to do the things that interest you, like we've talked before, like being interested in running and those sort of things, if you somehow took that away from me, I think I would be sort of lost. If you take that portion of someone's identity, what they know themselves as,
Yeah.
I agree. Without that, you feel lost. And for Kelly, it's the same thing. It's like she can't completely give up her own identity. You have to hold on to some of that. It's important.
And this is the kernel of what you guys, and because then there's another element of identity that you're pointing to, Kelly, when you're talking about your perspective on sex addiction or some kind of grasping, less grounded need that a person thinks they have that's rooted in another kind of identity, like an ego identity or something.
Well, because marriage isn't about what you get. It should be about what you give. And so I think I don't know, I'm pretty happy. I mean, am I lacking things? Probably, but I shouldn't really look to him, like, it's hard to, it's just a fine line that you tread. It's like meeting your needs and expecting your spouse to meet your needs and, who does what, but as far as like, I've heard of marriages going down because of sex and because of sex addiction. And I think that does not exist.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's definitely a hot button issue for you.
Yeah, these
thing.
men or even women that claim they have it, I don't know. I mean, I guess you could always step up and have more. But some men, they're claiming they're just going to, I don't know, we're not animals. That we're humans. That's what differs us from dogs that hump everything.
Well, I think you're talking about someone's drive for sex might be higher. And so you're talking about, I think testosterone drives, I think, a person's, a male, right, to want sex more. So a higher testosterone level would do that.
But if you
What
exercise, that goes down.
what you do with that is it's sort of like saying I have a massive craving for chocolate, just addicted to it. I could eat it all day. I could choose to fulfill that addiction and eat chocolate all day, or not, and find other ways that sort of block myself from going there. It's the same thing with sex. I mean, like, if I didn't run 5 days a week, would I be massively, pissed off that I wasn't having sex with my wife more? Maybe. But I've found another level that, for me, works.
There's this question that I've always wanted to ask a couple that you keep reminding me of. It's a lighthearted one, though. Kelly, what is it that Scott does that he may not even be aware of that makes the big differences for you?
Just the little things that he does. Like when I brought the lunches, he parked on the side of the road, and he always compliments me. Like if I wear a nice dress, he's like, "Oh, you look beautiful." He always says that, even when I don't look beautiful. He makes me breakfast. He brings me coffee every morning. I don't know. He's just a nice guy. I like to text little Bitmojis to him, and he'll laugh. Like, I don't know.
They're cheesy.
He's a good guy, and he's so good with our kids. Gosh, my girls love him so much. They love him so much. I could never, ever keep them away from him. Like, he's just such a good guy. And he's so good to his family and to my family. And, he's a great husband, I think.
That's really sweet. Well, now I want to ask you, too.
Of
What does she do?
She's hot.
She's hot. Check.
Do you need anything else? That's why I married her. Come on.
Aw, that's so sweet.
See, that's all I need to say.
I'm looking like crap lately, but
Well,
that's all she needs. Isn't that wonderful?
That's an interesting thing, because even though you're joking a little bit,
I'm not, actually.
she loves it. You're eating it up. But you could, if you wanted to, take the perspective that, well, he's not respecting your other qualities. But you're choosing...
She doesn't do that. The other qualities don't matter, right? No,
whatever.
I mean, there's a thousand other qualities. I focus on the fact that she's beautiful because I think women in general not only want to hear that. I do think she's absolutely stunning, from day one to now. And but I also think
You
that
rehearsed this, huh?
no, I haven't rehearsed anything. Come on, I think I'm stumbling here. But I think a lot of women want to hear that. I mean, I think that's what women want to hear, and I'm not saying that I'm telling her because she wants to hear that. But I think women want to know that they're beautiful, and if they are, and you're married to one, tell her. Well, even if she's not, I don't know. Maybe you should tell her. But no, there's plenty of other qualities.
Yeah, because that's actually not even my question. Because the question is, what does she do?
Oh, she does.
She can't do being beautiful. She just is.
I know, right?
Aw.
Good job.
Keep going.
Good job. It's coming from all angles now. No, she's the weight of the family. I mean, she's the one that carries all the burden, I would say. How she takes care of the kids, how she takes care of this family. I mean, she's the rock.
Really?
She's the rock. I am. Well, I mean, she takes care of literally everything. You name it. The bills. She takes care of us. She's there telling us every morning she loves us. She's there as a gigantic support. She's literally, if I were defining, I don't even know how to define it. She's the weight of the family. She is literally the matriarch.
Aww.
Right? So she's the one that without her, the family sort of falls apart. And so everything she does, I would say she says she's selfish. I don't think she's very selfish. Sometimes with her Bitmojis she can be, but I would say she's pretty selfless the way she operates. I mean, she's always, and to a fault, I would say, putting everybody else first. And the kids, me, how she works, how she operates, and I have to tell her, like, you need to do something for yourself, because a lot of times she puts herself at the very end, and it's that sort of selflessness that she operates on a daily basis that, it's she's a hell of a woman.
Oh, thank you, honey.
That's wonderful. It makes me feel happy that you acknowledged it.
Aw.
What's your role?
I'm the fun guy.
The mushroom. The fun guy.
Um,
He completes me.
yeah, I'm the I guess I'm just the I'm the guy who has fun with the kids and
He has fun with me.
have fun with with the wife and keeps it light when it needs to be light and I don't know. There's everybody we talked. Kelly talked earlier about roles and how they've gotten diminished over time as people's roles, and I would say our roles are not traditional. I would say and if you were to sort of look at our marriage, it looks like the marriage of the 70s or whatever, but we're reversed. Where she's the one making the majority of the money. She's the one who's doing the bills and all that. So she kind of operates more in the I don't want to say husband role because that's emasculating myself, but definitely like in
I don't always make a lot of money. I had a crappy year.
well, and I'm a teacher, so I'm always gonna have crappy. I mean, I love my job, but I'm not gonna be one who makes a ton of
I
money.
know a
and
bit or
supports his
two about
family.
investing, So we
She knows
make it
everything
through the
about
hard
investing.
times, but being self-employed, it's not like I'm making millions of dollars,
But what's cool about that?
Unfortunately.
What's cool about the fact that our roles have they're not sort of traditional is I'm just as involved with like the bathing of the kids and the brushing of the teeth and there's not a that you're the woman, you take care of that. Oh, you're the man, you take care of that. It's other than like physical work around the house. I think when it comes to raising our kids, we're both very involved. So there's no real like you do this, I do this. We're both involved.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
You know what I adore is marriages where the couple creates a marriage on their own terms, marriage that works for those two human beings because we're all different. We're just going to create what we do. And yet in our culture it's hard to break out of the what you think you're supposed to do or what you might think your friends think you're supposed to do, what culture's showing you're supposed to do in film. So you're doing a non-traditional, well, it's not that. I mean, you're both working,
Right.
but you're saying that she's taken on a role that in the past was the masculine role.
Mm-hmm.
Was that hard for you to acknowledge at first?
No, I quickly. She loves money, like not money in terms of like that's
Money,
she
money,
cares
money,
about.
money.
She loves
It's my ringtone.
She loves creating a giant nest egg for the family. So she loves the idea of saving and preparing for our future. That is not, unfortunately for me, that's not huge on my radar. It's not something I spend a lot of time thinking about. So I'm glad one of us does. So no, it never really bothers me. I mean, to this day, I mean, I'm glad she enjoys doing it. I think if we both enjoy doing it, there might be some benefit there, but there also might be a little bit of headbutting going on. So I
I'm
let
kind
her
of glad he lets me make
take the
investment
reins,
decisions
and she's done a
I
wonderful
can
job.
have my hidden bank accounts in Switzerland. He doesn't know.
Fine.
Well, let's turn to kids. So you two had two quick right off the bat. You went straight from 2 weeks of passion into
Pregnant.
into several years of the zombie years.
It wasn't that hard.
No?
I mean, I had a miscarriage in between the two kids.
Oh, I'm sorry. I
That
didn't
was
know
really
Kelly.
hard.
I didn't
Yeah,
know.
that was. I had a molar pregnancy, which is kind of like a form of cancer, and it was kind of hell. That whole year, but it was great because now I'm stronger for it. I also had an appendectomy on my birthday. Did you know that 2 years
I didn't
ago?
know any of this stuff.
I was in court and it burst. And then
In
I
court?
Yeah, I heard it. I still remember the case.
What happened to the hearing?
It got continued, but not because my appendix burst, just because the judge was too busy that day.
Can't you die like immediately?
I think you have 48 hours.
No, depends.
You have 48
It really
hours before you
depends.
can die.
You literally heard it?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I heard it, but I doubled over in pain. I had stomach aches. Came home, I was throwing up. I told him, I was like, I think my appendix burst, and he didn't know, but he drove me. And then I was in the hospital, and they x-rayed me, and sure enough, it burst.
How did you know that it was your appendix? What made you think
Because I
that?
Googled the symptoms on WebMD, and I was pretty sure I read them right.
Kelly's a doctor on her part-time. She tells doctors what she has.
And she's right.
Yeah, they
All
don't
the
tell
time.
her. They're like, no, that's not what I have. This is what I have. Doctor's like, okay, thanks.
Yeah. And I'm right all the time. But
Pretty much.
so what was the original point?
I don't know.
Kids.
I'm
Okay.
No, I'm still fascinated by this appendix thing. You're okay. Let's just tell the story. You're in court, sitting
I was standing,
talking to the judge,
talking to the judge, and
And-
the case had gotten continued, but I had felt a bad pain,
and
I was running a fever all morning, and I still went to court, and I still remember. And then that afternoon, I was admitted. It was February 11th. My birthday's on the 12th.
But what did the judge do when you've doubled over in pain?
I didn't show it. I never show when I'm in pain. Come on, I'm a poker face. I could be dying right this minute, and you will never know because I will finish this podcast and then die.
With a smile. And
Yep.
then die.
I'm not some wuss.
That would be quite a epic ending to a podcast.
That's going live quick.
But kids, let's go back to kids. I think kids actually improve a marriage.
Oof.
Don't you
Wow.
think? I think
That's
so.
a statement. Do you
That
want to throw
is.
that out there?
I think
If you want your
so.
marriage to get better, go have kids.
Yeah, because they
not
actually
sure that's a
studies
good
show that if
message.
you have kids, it'll keep your marriage together.
But your happiness will go down. Same studies show.
Yeah.
That's bullshit. Our happiness has skyrocketed
Well,
since we had kids.
I'll say this. Both of us were eager to have kids. So one of the first things we talked about, like literally within the first week of talking to each other, is we both wanted kids. I mean, that was big on our list.
I know. I emailed him. I was like, my clock's ticking. And
That
he
was
wrote back. He's like, mine too.
Well,
I don't know. We both love kids, and our kids, I mean, have they gotten in the way of our intimate moments? Probably.
definitely.
But they've contributed so much more to like the family unit. And we still do date nights. Like after this, we're going to go and have a glass of wine, just us. And, you know.
Well, guys, this has been a lovely show. I am so happy to see your home, to meet your dog, and spend some time with you.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Eric.
thanks for being. Okay, now I like to end shows on a quick game of this or that.
Okay.
So you know how this works?
No.
I'm going to say a this or that, and you're each going to tell me which you prefer.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll start easy, and we'll look around here. Oh, Halloween or Christmas?
Christmas.
That
You say it at the same time?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
was an easy.
That's an easy one.
Why?
Christmas is family.
gosh.
Christmas is,
Oh,
is
gosh.
there's no time, I think, better in terms of expressing like just time spent with family. I think we both grew up that way, and I don't know, something very tight knit about Christmas. Halloween's fun. It's about the kids getting, candy and having fun.
And cavities.
But yeah,
Too
but
much candy.
Christmas is like just singing, being together, just so much time together. It's wonderful.
We really do up Christmas.
All right, let me see if I can stress test the family question here. Would you rather have 15 kids, and no money, and having all those kids broke down your health? No, let's make it even more. 30 kids, and no money, and having those kids broke down your health,
I don't even need to hear the second option.
or
B.
or $1 billion,
What?
and no kids.
Duh. B.
$1 billion and no kids. But I mean, you just
The
said
way
it's
you
so
put
important.
it.
Well, I mean, you were
Because
saying
these kids broke down my health. Maybe if it was 30 kids or $1 billion.
okay, you still have your health. 30 kids and no money, or $1 billion and no kids.
$1 billion and no kids. Who the hell wants 30 kids?
How about come down a little bit? Maybe 10 kids?
That's still fucked up. No. I scheduled his vasectomy like a week after our second was born.
You know what you want.
Yeah, and he just showed up. I'm sorry. Did that emasculate you?
No, that's not
Okay.
an emasculating thing at all. That's like the man who can have a vasectomy actually has made it. I think that's a well-established thing in guy circles. But okay, so because I thought you were going to say kids, I thought it would be at least difficult for you because the kids have been so important.
No, I think if you were to say 2 kids and very happy, or $1 million and not happy, or $1 billion, I would say 2 kids, right?
Yeah.
But 30, I think that's misery.
Okay. 5 kids and no money, or $1 billion and no kids.
$1 billion and no kids.
Still?
Yes, because anything beyond 2 is too much. I don't want 3 kids.
You know your answers. It's so good talking to you.
Why the hell would you want to have 3 kids?
I didn't say anything.
Okay. Or 5.
I
It's
don't
like,
answer
that's
this
too
quickly.
much.
I have to think things out. This is why she's a great lawyer.
She has strong opinions and backs them up,
yeah,
I tell you.
she'd be a great judge, too,
Okay.
based on that quick response.
Okay, yeah, right? Or a terrible one.
That's true.
Okay, would you rather be Wonder Woman or who's the one that goes invisible?
Invisible Woman?
Would you rather be Underwoman or Underwoman? Would you rather be Wonder Woman or Invisible Man?
Invisible Man.
Wonder Woman.
Wonder Person or Invisible Person?
Wonder Person.
You know Adia plays this game, right? Or my oldest plays this.
Oh, really?
Would you rather?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. They started this game in school, and she does this with me. She used to do this with me all the time.
What's
That's
the
so
best
cute.
question she's asked you so far?
Gosh, what was it? Would you? It was always around like consuming something. Like, would you rather, like eat snot or like eat poo or something?
Yeah.
'cause kids at that age
Snot.
are obsessed with poo.
Yeah, definitely snot.
Yeah.
probably
can't
do
die
that all the
from
time
snot.
anyway. That's what sex is all about. Okay.
Gross. Which is why I don't do that.
Wonderful.
Okay. Second to last question. Would you rather, this is also a money question, would you rather have enlightenment or $1 billion?
Enlightenment.
Can you buy enlightenment with $1 billion?
Pretty sure you
know.
can.
I bet you I can buy for 100. $1 billion. And I'll buy enlightenment.
For $100 million. You still have $900 million to
That's
spare.
right.
Be on a mountain.
I could buy 9 other people
by
enlightenment
myself with enlightenment.
with no money.
Sitting on a pile of
I can
oh.
buy enlightenment.
That's fine.
Okay, that's funny though, but last question. Would you rather live forever, infinity, or die in the next 5 minutes?
I'd live forever.
Die in the next 5 minutes.
My daughter wants me to live forever. She wants us to live forever. She keeps talking about
I know,
us
but
dying.
then your age fails.
Well,
and
she's
then-
going to die.
Wow, that's true. So that would be pretty miserable. But 5 minutes? I don't even got time to enjoy my kids.
You wouldn't even have time to probably run in there. Well, you would have time to run in there, say goodbye, and traumatize them.
Fix her will. Fix her will. Fix her trust. Die.
In 5 minutes?
Yeah.
She's quick.
She gets a lot of stuff done.
It's in my Dropbox
freaking
somewhere.
efficient. That's why she does so well.
It's true.
That's it for our interview with Scott and Kelly, folks. Thanks for listening. You can find Kelly's family law practice online at purposedrivenlawyers.com. I'll put that link in the show notes in case you didn't get it just now. She has offices in Pasadena, Los Angeles, San Diego, and even in San Francisco. If you liked what you heard on the show, please subscribe to us, and also please review us on iTunes. It makes a huge difference when you do that. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to be on the show, please reach out via one of our social platforms. You can find our website at www.together.guide. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/togethershow. Twitter and Instagram are both at together_show, or you can email me at host@together.guide. Our producer is Charlene Goto. Our web designer is Courtney Munna. Our art director, and my one and only, is Aubrey Pick. She made me a delicious dinner tonight. I'm so grateful. Thanks once again to my guests, Scott and Kelly. Guys, let's have a family fun day next time I'm in town. How about a barbecue? That's all for today, folks. See you next time.